So let's talk BlackBerry. I can promise you that wasn't on my bingo card for this week. I saw this story last week. I saw BlackBerry Kevin's post talking about reviving the BlackBerry brand. We did a story on it on Android Police over the weekend, and I kind of just dismissed it as maybe a clicks crossover, perhaps picking up some of the branding and bringing that over to the keyboard kind of add-on platform that he's created with Mr. Mobile. And kudos to them for that. You know, it's not for me. People keep asking me when I'm going to review the Clicks devices. I probably not, because I just don't think that's the solution I want for a keyboard on my modern day smartphone. I much rather the approach that Unihertz takes, even though it's not perfect, giving me something like the Unihertz Titan 2, where the device is built around the keyboard. The software, not necessarily. We'll get to that in a moment, because that might very well be a problem with a revived BlackBerry. But I want the design to lean into what makes it unique. So if there's a keyboard, sell out on the keyboard. Give me the keyboard. That's why I like the Titan 2, that it's so big and wide and reminiscent of the BlackBerry Passport, because if you're going to have that keyboard in 2025, make it big, make it bold. So it became apparent. Tech Odyssey, kudos to him. Great interview. Link in the description. Go watch his interview with BlackBerry Kevin. It's more than just a clicks crossover. It's more than just a branding of the add-on keyboards. He's talking about a new device. He's talking about a legitimate smartphone from the ground up. And it's interesting. It's something that I certainly would support. Heck, you don't have to ask me twice. I'd be first online to pre-order one. But if you're talking about a new BlackBerry, legitimate BlackBerry in 2025, there are so many questions and hurdles that I have that I think you'd have to conquer before you're looking at a successful device. The first one he addressed in the interview with Tech Odyssey, BlackBerry Kevin, and I knew that. I knew he would, right? Because this is a BlackBerry fan. These are smart people. He talks with the people who design the BlackBerries. Like, that's who he wants to bring on his team. The original BlackBerries, the OEM ones. So I understood that he probably knew this, but it's still comforting to hear that it's not just about the keyboards, right? You could slap a keyboard on anything. I think he even mentioned, Palm had keyboards at the time. The Nokia had keyboards. There were so many devices with keyboards at the time. What was it about BlackBerry that made that particular brand stand out? And it was a lot that went into that. And the first question I'm going to have, and the first difficulty I think that any new company and any new device with the BlackBerry branding is going to have, is that how do you get over that Android hurdle? And he mentioned that a little bit, saying, well, there'd be one for consumers that was more traditional Android, and then kind of a government one, and that was the genesis. That makes sense, right? Because that was the catalyst for the most recent revival of BlackBerry, the onward mobility device that was in the planning stages. There was a prototype. They were ready to go. It was just the funding dried up during the pandemic, and they weren't able to get the device out. But that was the catalyst there. Governments, businesses, executives wanted a more secure version of a smartphone that they could use, and why not leverage that BlackBerry legendary security? So that made sense. So this is kind of the same thought process there, where you'd have this kind of Android version and then you'd have another one. Now, I don't know how secure that you can make Android. There are so many things that you could strip away. I don't know what kind of platform that would be running on. But even let's say the consumer one, let's put the business one aside for a moment. Let's talk about the consumer one, the one that you and I would be buying. I don't know how you could skin Android. You could do what Motorola does with Moto Secure. There are only so many things that you could do to Android, and it's still Android. So I don't know. You're not going to have the resources for a completely new operating system. You're not going to have the resources for the back-end servers and the support and everything that goes into that. You're not going to have the BlackBerry servers. You're not going to have all the data that goes through there, and the security and BlackBerry Protect and all those things that were working in the background that made BlackBerry excellent, that gave it that reputation for security and reliability. That's going to be tough to duplicate because you're still working with Android. So yes, you can flash it up. Yes, you can make a nice looking device. You could do all these things. You could probably put a fantastic keyboard on there, especially if you get some of the BlackBerry IP. But can you reconstruct the entire experience? And that's where I start to have doubts. And because it wasn't just about, and they acknowledged this in the interview, it wasn't just about the keyboard. It was about that software experience. And what made BlackBerry software awesome? What made the BlackBerry experience excellent? It was so lightweight. It was so well designed. It ran, you could run it on whatever. I mean, there's Snapdragon S4s or whatever the mid-range chip was back in the day. No problems whatsoever. Slide through apps. It was power efficient. Really nice. Batteries lasted for days. Yes, they had bigger batteries for even the time period, especially the BlackBerry Passport, devices like that. But still, you need that power efficiency. You need that software that could take advantage of that. You need that. You could sit this thing could last for 3 days, 4 days on a single charge. Not even worry about it. And that's with some of the modern equivalent of apps back then on here. So can you duplicate that on a modern device? It's tougher now. You know, sometimes there was devices and time periods and whatever that were just perfect for the time. There was lightweight software, which you saw on Windows Phone as well at the time. Nice batteries, efficient chipsets. I don't know what a BlackBerry in 2025 would look like that can put those pieces back together, that could reconstruct that experience and then try to capture that magic again. Because there was a lot of pieces there, and it's going to take significant resources to put them all back in place and put that egg back together again. It's just going to be a massive undertaking. Obviously, the will is there. There's enough enthusiasm in the community. I understand that. But there's another thing that you're going to have to conquer if you want to sell something like this. Companies can do things like what Unihertz did with the Unihertz Titan 2. That's a low-cost device, $300, $400. And how did Unihertz get there? A lot of off-the-shelf parts, right? That's why the case is so thick, because they're not custom building all these parts that are going to fit together in certain ways, and you're not getting Galaxy S25 Edge-like thinness. It's just not going to happen. You got to deal with what these cases are. So you're going to get a bulkier device. You're going to get a device that's not maybe built for the ground up around a keyboard, even though Unihertz has done an excellent job adding software cues in there, making the keyboard feel like a native part of the experience. But that's, there's more to be done there on a full-fledged BlackBerry device with BlackBerry branding. Plus, he was talking about a premium device with the fit and finish that you'd expect from BlackBerry. That's machining. That's design. That's premium materials. Premium chipset, most likely. So what are you going to pay for this thing? $800? $900? Whatever the equivalent would be of what this cost back in the day? That's a tough sell. At $400, $300, you're more likely to get people who have a slab phone right now who are willing to take a chance on a keyboard device. At $900, it's like the problem with the Galaxy Z Fold 7. Galaxy Z Fold 7, fantastic phone. We're going to have the review next week. Really nice to use. It's Samsung's best effort on foldables in years. It's $2,000. You're not walking into a store expecting to spend $800, $900. You're looking around the phone and saying, you know what? I'm going to double it. You know what? Just double it. Go ahead. Just give me the big boy. That's less likely to happen the more expensive a device gets. And you're going to need people who did not use a BlackBerry 20 years ago to give it another shot. The last OEM BlackBerry came out in 2015 with the Priv. Not yesterday. You got an entire generation of buyers who are a large consumer base who you have to convince to use this. So yes, does it have to focus on security? Yes. It has to focus on making social media what we'd expect it to be today. Communication. The other thing I think you battle with, this, besides price, is patience. How patient are people today? How patient? You and I will use a keyboard phone. You're watching this video, right? You're a fan of my channel. You probably used a keyboard phone today. Not a big deal for us. Who's going to sit through the relearning process of typing on one of these? Is it a nicer typing experience? Is it a more accurate typing experience? Absolutely. 100% down the line. It's slower. It's slower. So you're going to have to get people who are used to flying around on their glass keyboard, on their glass screens and the keyboards, to sit down and type out messages, long messages again. And then it comes down to preference. I just think you're asking a lot. I don't know how many you'd have to sell to be profitable. And that's what I guess this is, maybe a phishing, bring back BlackBerry campaign, seeing how many people would actually buy one of these devices. Clicks has obviously had niche success, and maybe that's all you need. But I think we're not talking about an accessory. We're not talking about, I don't want to insult them and say it's a low barrier to entry, because it's not. There's a lot of machining and design and everything. I'm sure the costs were very high to bring that product to market. Now make that even higher. Talk about machining, talk about manufacture, talk about software, talk about support, talk about all these other things, distribution, all these other things that have to come together. And how many you have to sell, and how many you could realistically sell. Not to be a naysayer, okay? Like I said, I'd be the first one in line. So would you, right? Even if it's $900, who cares? I'd be the first one in line. Give me a BlackBerry. Show me this logo again. Show me this logo again on a premium keyboard device, and I'm there. But millions got to come with you. And I think that's where there are certain things, not to say that BlackBerry or keyboard phones are best deserved left in the past, which is a point that they brought up during the interview. But I do believe there's a lot of hurdles that you have to cross. And then you have to look in the mirror with that end device that you put up there for $800, $900 and look at your BlackBerry Passport and look at all the rest of it. And you look yourself in the mirror and use that device and say, did we actually replicate this experience? Did we actually take the essence of what made BlackBerry special and transfer it into a new form factor for 2025? And I'm telling you, that's a lot trickier than it sounds to get that right. But you got to get it perfect, or else it's not going to work. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steelers day.